Next, on a special edition of Current News, back to Mass.
Let us pray.
The Diocese of Brooklyn is opening churches at full capacity.
It's exciting. We're looking forward to seeing people back and celebrating the Eucharist.
Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio with what you need to know. Plus, bucking the trend, Diocese of Brooklyn schools are seeing a boost in attendance while others nationwide lose students. Standing up to hate, Charities teaming up to host a pop-up food pantry, sharing a message of hope and inclusion.
Division seems to be more prevalent than it has been in the past.
And Holy Land in crisis, the deadly conflict between Israel and Hamas, a shaky ceasefire now in effect. Welcome to this special edition of Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. A return to normalcy this weekend for the faithful. Churches in the Diocese of Brooklyn will open at full capacity for masses. Most COVID restrictions in our parishes will be lifted in the next few weeks.
Let us pray.
Big news for the faithful in Brooklyn and Queens, and another sign that New York is inching back to a life we once knew. As New York continues to relax many of its restrictions, Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio says churches can now reopen at 100%.
It's exciting. We're looking forward to seeing people back and celebrating the Eucharist with enthusiasm. When we see a crowd, it's when you see somebody there, it's not quite the same. It's hard to get the same enthusiasm.
The new guidance just issued to pastors and administrators says churches will no longer need to rope off pews, though social distancing will still be required for those not vaccinated.
Unvaccinated should, again, wear masks, and not that they're going to segregate them to certain places, but they have to use their common sense.
Other guidance includes masks. They will still be strongly recommended. Good hand hygiene will still be required, and churches will be encouraged to provide disinfectant. Hymnals and other church materials will once again be allowed, and offertory collections will resume with baskets. In addition, choirs will resume their normal activities, provided members are vaccinated. Holy Communion will continue in the form of bread only, with no shared cups, receiving in the hand recommended. But for those who may not be able to attend Mass in person, the bishop is recommending that live streaming of Masses continues.
It's very important to have that. It should be enough. We've learned something new again in the pandemic, that we could do that, and it's not that difficult. And for especially the homebound that really cannot get out, it's a great grace that can see their own parish and keep in contact with them.
No one will be asked to prove their vaccination status. The Diocese of Brooklyn is encouraging pastors to use their best judgment in determining the best way to get parishioners back in the pews safely. Dispensation from the Sunday Mass obligation will be lifted the first weekend in June. As New York City reopens, the Diocese of Brooklyn's emergency task force is being honored for all the work the team did during the pandemic to get us here. Current News' Jessica EASTHOPE was at the ceremony and has more.
First responders and frontline workers put their lives at risk to help New York City fight off COVID-19. Now the team of people who had their backs is getting recognition.
Urgent task force.
Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams honored the Diocese of Brooklyn's emergency task force. The 7-person team was presented with citations for their tireless efforts Friday. Over the course of the worst days of the pandemic, the task force delivered PPE, hand sanitizer, and even pizzas to police and fire departments, hospitals, and nursing homes across the state. The task force's work all part of the Catholic mission of the Diocese of Brooklyn.
We didn't save lives, we helped saving lives, the first responders, the firefighters, the police officers, and we, as a Catholic church, I think it's goes to show the work that we could do.
Our faith-based institutions play such a vital and critical role on getting our city back up and operating. We cannot thank them enough.
As the city continues to get the spread of COVID-19 under control, the emergency task force has shifted its focus from PPE to vaccinations, testing, and fighting food insecurity. In downtown Brooklyn, Jessica EASTHOPE, Currents News.
As Catholic schools nationwide lose students, those in the Diocese of Brooklyn are going against the trend. Many even have a waiting list, but one in particular is thriving more than it has in decades. Jessica EASTHOPE earlier this week visited St. Francis de Sales Catholic Academy in Bell Harbor.
Space is tight on the walls in the hallways of St. Francis de Sales Catholic Academy. That's because it's been 20 years since the school had this many students.
We've made great efforts in our diocese of trying to increase enrollment and let people see the value of Catholic education here in Brooklyn and Queens.
209 Catholic schools across the country have closed over the past year. Nationwide enrollment fell 6.4%. But in the Diocese of Brooklyn, registration is up 1,500 students compared to this time last year. And at St. Francis de Sales Catholic Academy, 569 students are currently enrolled. That number will be shooting up to 638 come September.
The interesting thing is how the enrollment has grown this year.
Frantic, excellent.
Judy LINDNER says her students have adapted seamlessly.
Let's go to Jack.
Watching her over and sometimes through plastic shields.
We are the church.
Her first graders don't take up too much space, but next year there'll be more of them.
And because we are growing in enrollment, now Mr. SCHARBACH is able to make the first grade into 3 classes.
And it's not only first grade that's had to modify.
It used to be our cafeteria.
As enrollment climbed, Principal SCHARBACH has had to transform the entire school.
One thing that the pandemic has had us do is to really be creative in how we structure a school.
About 10 minutes left.
He says it's sad to see so many people forced out of Catholic schools by the economic effects of the pandemic, a problem they've tried to keep under control at the school.
We've tried to be a little bit more understanding, trying to work with them around it, and we also have a tuition assistance committee for anyone who has, fallen on tough times.
St. Francis de Sales' motto is anchored in Christ. Staff says that mindset has kept them afloat.
We continue to put faith first.
So as the school continues to make room, repurpose, and squeeze in where they can, Mr. SCHARBACH says it's the artwork, prayers, and projects on the walls that remind him a Catholic education is a gift. In Bell Harbor, Jessica EASTHOPE, Currents News.
Charities are fighting hunger and hatred at the same time. Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens and others have teamed up to host a pop-up food pantry in Brooklyn. Currents News' Emily DROOBY has more as they offer both free food and a message of hope and inclusion.
Different religions, different ethnicities, but all of these people have something in common: the desire to stomp out hate through kindness. Doing so through a food drive put together by 2 different religious-based groups, it's being called Hate Has No Home Here. Working towards unity, something Monsignor Alfred Lapinto says is crucial right now.
The country is falling apart. Okay, division seems to be more prevalent than it has been in the past.
In the first 4 months of 2021, New York City saw a 73% increase in hate crimes, including attacks against the faithful.
We've had a mosque vandalized within the last few days. We've seen a surge last year in anti-Semitic crimes. And this year, right now, just in the last few days, we have had a few Catholic institutions, churches, and other property vandalized.
Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez referring to the crucifix torn down in front of St. Athanasius Church in Bensonhurst and a statue depicting the Virgin Mary and her son Jesus, which was defaced in front of the diocesan offices.
I grew up as a Catholic, and to see images of our saints and others being desecrated is heartbreaking.
Asian Americans are under attack too. Hate crimes against them skyrocketing in 2021, 5 times higher than last year. So much hate, and that's what this food drive is fighting against.
Thank you.
Oh, bukachi.
A partnership between Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens and the Met Council, one of the most prominent Jewish nonprofits. 2 different religious groups and volunteers from all different backgrounds, like the Chinese American Planning Council, coming together to help feed 400 families.
It's so heartbreaking to see hungry people standing in line for food in this country. But on the other hand, all these groups coming together to stand up against hatred is really brings hope.
Looking out for one's neighbor, no matter their background, the first steps in creating a more unified city.
So while hate might have no home here, acceptance, love, and kindness certainly do. In Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
Crime in the subway is also up. Just this past Wednesday, Union Square saw its fourth attack in just a week's time when a man suddenly started stabbing a 54-year-old woman. She was saved by Good Samaritan Sean Conaboy, who immediately stepped in to help. Sean spoke with Currents News about the incident and safety on the subways.
For people to make the assertion that the subway is dangerous, it should be an unacceptable thing to hear from somebody who lives and works in New York, because it's a vital, necessary part of our lives. And for us to have to worry about our safety on an ongoing, constant basis is an unacceptable trend that I think really needs to be addressed.
Sean says everyone has the right to wait for their train without being assaulted. Currents News will have more with Sean Conaboy on Monday. Jessica Easthope will ride the rails with him, talking about these dark days underground and what commuters are demanding from this city. Rival protests clashed in Times Square Thursday night following the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. In this video, you can see the pro-Israel and pro-Palestine demonstrators confront each other. The NYPD took at least 24 into custody. During the confrontation, a Jewish man was attacked and beaten in what is being investigated as a hate crime. One person has been arrested for the assault, but up to 6 more are on the loose. The ceasefire took effect early Friday morning in the Middle East after 11 days of deadly violence in the Holy Land. Pope Francis is calling on the world's Catholics to pray this weekend for dialogue, forgiveness, and peaceful coexistence, ending the week just as he started it.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia.
Pope Francis last Sunday asked pilgrims to pray for peace in the Holy Land, calling the deaths of children there unacceptable.
Numerose persone sono rimaste ferite e tanti innocenti sono morti. Tra di loro ci sono anche i bambini. E questo è terribile, è inaccettabile. La loro morte è segno che non si vuole costruire il futuro, ma lo si vuole distruggere.
That same day was the deadliest day in the conflict between Israel and Hamas, with 52 people killed last Sunday alone. One priest in Jerusalem, caught in the middle of the airstrikes and rocket attacks, described the situation in the Holy City.
It has been getting worse and worse. We have been hearing gunfire for 3 nights now, several missiles and bombings, and that is why we are very concerned. We don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty.
That fear and uncertainty also felt by the most vulnerable, the children caught in the crossfire.
It's okay, it's not near us, I promise.
This clip, posted of a 10-year-old girl in Gaza, went viral.
All of this, what do you expect me to do? Fix it? I'm only 10. I can't even do anything this morning. I just want to be a doctor or anything to help my people, but I can't. I'm just a kid.
President Biden had a private call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday, where he said he expected a significant de-escalation. And on Thursday, he spoke about the conflict.
I believe the Palestinians and Israelis equally deserve to live safely and securely and to enjoy equal measures of freedom, prosperity, and democracy.
Over the past 2 weeks, at least 230 Palestinians, including 65 children, were killed, thousands more injured. Israel reports 10 adults and 2 children were killed there. There's a lot more news headed your way. Hate crimes against the Catholic Church, why clergy in the Diocese of Brooklyn are asking police to step up patrols. And double check your receipts. Your grocery list could be eating away at your wallet without you even noticing. And later in the show, a Catholic beauty consultant joins us with tips on expressing your faith through fashion.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
The Diocese of Brooklyn is on edge after those two separate vandalism incidents Emily mentioned earlier that are now being investigated as hate crimes. The latest happening right outside the diocese administrative offices. Baby Jesus' head broken off this statue depicting the Virgin Mary holding her infant son. Bishop DIMARZIO is calling for more police patrols at diocesan buildings. If you have any information, call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. That's 800-577-8477. If you've noticed a trip to the grocery store is getting a lot more expensive, you're not alone. According to the Consumer Price Index, the cost of food has gone up 3.5% over the past year, and fallout from the pandemic could mean prices are likely to keep rising. But Currents News' Emily Drooby tells us there are ways to save in her special report, Supermarket Shock.
Making dinner and gathering around the table, it's an important activity to the Carbones, who live in Richmond Hill, Queens.
An essential part of our family is dinner time. We've never strayed from that.
While family dinner remains a constant for them, something they can't control is causing concern.
It's definitely noticeable how prices are higher.
The Carbones' grocery bill is skyrocketing. It began when COVID started spreading in New York.
It's stabilized a little bit, but it's still higher than before compared to last year.
Jenny says a year ago, their average bill for one delivery would be just under $200.
Now every time I place an order, it's either $240, $250, and no matter how I tweak it or switch it around, it always ends up being over $200.
The Carbones aren't alone. With current prices, half a gallon of milk is about $4, a dozen eggs are about $3, and a package of bacon is about $8. That's $15 for just 3 breakfast items. Someone making minimum wage in New York would have to work an hour to cover the cost of just one meal. The pandemic is causing an unusual leap in food prices, the highest in almost a decade, with the biggest jump in animal products like beef, veal, pork, and eggs. Several factors play into the rise.
I think the food sector has been profoundly disrupted, and it's been disrupted on every front.
Nick Freudenberg of CUNY's Urban Food Policy Institute says it comes down to supply and demand.
Because they didn't follow safety precautions in some of those big meat packing plants, a lot of their workers got sick, and so they had to slow down.
The same goes with distribution, according to Phil Lempert, who runs consumer insight group Supermarket Guru.
It broke the supply chain. We didn't have trucks where we needed them. There's containers that used to bring in imported foods that are stuck in other countries.
While much of the U.S. is slowly reopening, these factors are expected to linger. But even before COVID hit, food prices were already heading up with increases to the minimum wage.
Somebody's got to pay for that, and that's going to be you and me.
Other shoppers like Marco Colacito are finding big savings at European grocery store chains like Aldi and Lidl. New stores are popping up all over the tri-state area.
I went to Lidl and when the shopping experience was really nice.
We decided to check it out too. We stopped by a Lidl in New Jersey and found significantly lower prices for store brands and brand names. A dozen eggs are $1.52, half a gallon of milk is $2.22, and bacon is $3.99 for a total of $7.73. That's almost a 50% difference from average prices.
To me, it's to supplement some of my other shopping. I think that's the best way that we're using it right now. But it's making a significant difference in, with the dollar, with stretching the dollar.
And there are still other ways to save. For families looking to cut costs, Phil suggests slowing down. That might sound silly, but since the pandemic hit, a person's average trip to the grocery store has dropped from 22 minutes about 2 times a week to 10 minutes only once a week, leaving less time to shop around for the best deal. The question is, will prices ever come down? Phil says it will take time.
Because when you think about the manufacturing of food, you can't react overnight.
Emily Drooby, Currents News.
Even though the economy is recovering, people are still struggling to make ends meet. Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens is helping. They have food pantries around the Diocese of Brooklyn. If you need help or know a family who does, call 718-722-6001 or go to their website, ccbq.org. Still to come on this special edition of Currents News, mixing faith with fashion. A Catholic beauty consultant joins us with tips on how you can pursue God's mission in style. Expressing your Catholic faith through fashion. That's the idea behind a new book coming out called Worthy of Wearing: How Personal Style Expresses Our Feminine Genius. I spoke with the book's author and former magazine beauty editor NICOLE CARUSO about what women can do to integrate their faith into their clothing.
I think there's a lot of different ways, and one of the ways I love to do it is with jewelry. I find we have, especially now, there's so many beautiful ways to incorporate little pieces, even ones that are very subtle, you know, a little miraculous medal, a little crucifix, you know, a little Jerusalem cross, something that just signifies that we are Catholic. And I think there's other ways that we can nod to sort of the motifs of our faith, like with fleur-de-lis or stars, and you think of Our Lady, or with certain colors even that we see in the liturgy and following the liturgical calendar. So we can really be creative with it and find ways to kind of connect those beautiful details of the faith with our clothing.
So talk about how being a Catholic has affected your style.
I think my style has changed over the years for many different reasons, but especially as I've grown in my faith. I think modesty is something that's just grown as more important to me as a virtue, not only in how I'm dressing, but also how I behave and the way that I'm seen as a Catholic woman in public. And so, you know, my style has changed, of course, as my body has changed. All of us as women, our bodies change so much over the course of our lives. But really just trying to find things that I feel comfortable and confident in, that I can move in, and that I'm not constantly adjusting. I think that's a part of modesty that we don't always think of. You know, if you feel like you have to keep pulling up that top or pulling down that skirt, we become so distracted and we really lose that sense of presence to the people that we're spending time with. And we start to turn inward and thinking of, gosh, is my skirt still there? You know, you do that little finger graze. So I think for me, it's changed in the sense of finding things that actually suit me and my state in life as a mom and a wife.
Okay, and in your book, you talk about skincare as well. Tell us a little bit about how you keep your routine effortless.
I like to make sure it stays under about 2 minutes most days because, you know, I want my skin to feel comfortable. I want it to have a natural glow. I want to feel comfortable in my own skin without makeup on. So I just, you know, I always make sure to cleanse. That's so important for our skin health, and moisturize. If I have to sometimes just do those two things on a minimal night, I will do those two. And other nights when I can add in more treatments, you know, like a mask or a special oil, I'll do that. But really it's about quick timing for maximum impact.
If you'd like a copy of author NICOLE CARUSO's Worthy of Wearing: How Personal Style Expresses Our Feminine Genius, head on over to sophiainstitute.com. The book will be released on May 25th. Looking forward to that. And that does it for this special edition of Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.